Hi, Capricorn. This is Tisch Aitken, and this is your monthly horoscope for the month of July. And this is a historical year. You have been the star of the zodiac because we've had this historical lineup of the ruler of your chart, Saturn, the planet of karma and responsibility and accountability and restructuring and limitations, meet up with Pluto, which is the planet of death and rebirth. Pluto rules the sign of Scorpio. And the two meet up approximately every 34 to 36 years. But they met up for the first time in 500 years in your sign, over 500, and also with the south node of karma in your sign, with the eclipses in the Capricorn Cancer axis, and Jupiter, which is the luckiest planet and a planet of expansion, but in this case expanding the whole narrative, collapsing of old structures, death and rebirth on the global level, because certain degrees correlate to the world axis. So for instance, 0 degrees of the cardinal signs, among which you are, and those cardinal signs are Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. And 22 degrees of the cardinal signs also correspond with the world axis. So they hit us in a much more powerful manner, and they hit world leaders. And again, whether or not they hit planets in our charts, they impact each and every one of us, as we can see, as this year has shown. And so there has been a lot of renovation and restructuring and loss and repair. And there's been a lot of all this cardinal energy has at least enabled all of us to get through an uncharted time. And you of all signs know about karma and about making things happen, because Capricorn is a cardinal earth sign, and the cardinal signs are the signs that really catalyze things. And by the end of the year, you're going to get a bit of a reprieve, because you'll no longer have Saturn transiting in your sign. And also the nodes of fate have now left the Capricorn Cancer axis. That occurred on May 5th. So there will be one final eclipse in your sign, but that will be the last. So let's just go over what's happened so far. So we had a lunar eclipse in Sagittarius that occurred on June 5th at 15 degrees of Sag, and that fell in your 12th house of spirituality and dreams, but also the house of endings. Could be information that got brought to light, because it is the house of secrets. It could be the things came to you in, or have come to you in dreams, because a lot of information is again in the subconscious mind, and it could be a spiritual path and bringing things to completion. The second eclipse was, I think, the biggest deal for all of us, was a total solar eclipse in Cancer that occurred at 0 degrees of Cancer on the solstice weekend. It occurred on June 21st at 2:41 a.m. Eastern Time. And it occurred just within a degree of the north node of fate. And to have an eclipse in itself, the new moon or the full moon has to be within 19 degrees of the nodes of the moon. To have a total solar or lunar eclipse, it has to be within 9 degrees. In this case, it was just within 1 degree, which makes it incredibly karmic, incredibly powerful. And eclipses usher in a lot of change in a very short period of time. So it's where we feel more anxiety. There's a sense of pressured energy. It can be a time of critical decisions. It can be a time of crisis. It can bring major new beginnings as well. It's not all, well, it can seem ominous, but it can also be incredible new beginnings and things that happen. But it is when people feel more anxiety. It rules the electromagnetic field, or it affects it rather, and so it affects all of us. And we also have several planets retrograde at the moment. The only planets that are not currently retrograde are Mars and Uranus. And so there's a very reflective tone. A lot of us are reconnecting, reopening slowly, returning to things, and there's several planets retrograde. Venus, which is a personal planet, was retrograde from May 13th until June 25th. It's still in its shadow. That is stationed direct, and that was retrograding in your house of work and daily routine and habits and health. So for you, all this restructuring that occurred at the beginning of the year, all of these planets, Saturn, which is how you anchor your goals, Pluto, how you transform and empower yourself, Jupiter, how you expand, how you magnetize opportunities, even if it's dealing with challenges that get maximized, which it seems in this year things have gotten really expanded. I mean, Jupiter will expand whatever it comes in contact with, but also for all of us to do something about this story, to rebuild, to restructure, to launch ahead. And if any sign is going to do it and help us in that, it would hopefully be Capricorn. But you've gone through a lot the last few years with Saturn in your sign, and Pluto's been in your sign since 2008 and 2009, and it entered the world point at that time, and we had the global financial crisis. So you can see how the certain degrees correlate with big events. And so for you, this is still it's still the Capricorn year. Saturn briefly exited your sign on March 23rd and entered the fixed air sign of Aquarius and entered your house of income and how you earn money and what you value. And it exits the sign, or it exits the beginning of the month on July 1st. And it will be transiting back, and it's now re-entering your first house of self. So you're not done in the inner work. And it's many things, with Capricorn, it's about commitment. Capricorn rules time. So it's not all of this is in the short term, but what are your bigger long-term plans? If you're coming from a place of integrity and you're in line with what you're meant to do, this could be a very eventful year for you in terms of accomplishing, although not in an easy manner. It hasn't been easy for a while. So I don't think that, and nothing comes easily, for a Capricorn, in the sense that I think that most Capricorns I know are very familiar with the fact that, the Saturn energy, you work hard, you karma is a bitch, and you realize, excuse me for cursing, but it's true. And I think it's working with this energy and figuring out what you want to do to go forward. And it's going to be a crazy summer. It already is. And the last eclipse on July 5th is in your sign. This is the final eclipse in your sign, and it occurs at 13 degrees of Capricorn. And it's your first house of self. It's a lunar eclipse, so bringing endings and fruition. So there are things you're releasing because the South Node was transiting in your sign from November 6th of 2018 until May 5th of this year. So the South Node is what we're meant to release. The North Node is where we're meant to go towards. And the total solar eclipse occurred on June 21st. That fell in your house of partnerships. So this could bring in major new opportunities for partnering with people in many respects, whether it's professionally, whether it's new romantic relationships. But eclipses also can eclipse people out of our lives. And given that the eclipses have been in your sign axis for a while, given that the South Node was transiting in your sign, and given that Saturn and Pluto is death and rebirth on the mass level, and there is a lot of change, there probably will be some people you are releasing in this process, and situations and relationship with yourself. Maybe you're you're definitely restructuring your own goals and your life, and I think focusing on your daily routine as well, and how you can take care of yourself, because the first house deals with the physical body. So when Saturn's transiting in your sign, it can bring a lot of stress. It can be difficult to sleep well, or you have just a lot of pressure. So making sure it can devitalize you. So getting enough rest is imperative during this time. Not easy, but it is. And so we're going to be done with eclipse season. And so, we have 6 eclipses this year as opposed to 4. So that, again, makes this a really intense year. And now Mars has just entered the sign of Aries, and we have a really cardinal summer ahead. So the cardinal signs launch things and they catalyze things. But Mars in Aries wants to go full throttle, and it's very effective. It's the most potent placement in the sign, in the cardinal fire sign of Aries. And it's transiting in your house of home and family and real estate. And there can be perhaps there's fights at home, or struggles or issues, or the way to handle it, though, is thinking of taking action. Maybe you're fixing up your place. Maybe you're getting a new home or moving, with Mars transiting there, because Mars is going to be in Aries for the rest of the year, and it exits on January 6th. generally we have Mars in a sign for 2 months. So we're going to deal with Mars, very fiery, very impatient, excellent for getting things accomplished. But it's going to clash with all the planets that led the year in your sign, because this is a fellow cardinal sign. It forms a 90-degree angle. It squares your sign. So that's friction. It can get you to do things. Sometimes we need the more challenging aspects to get us to move and make us, do things. So, but it also is going to bring strife inevitably. And, Mars is the god of war, and people are going to get a lot more triggered. So being aware of that. And the dates to bear in mind are August 11th, October 7th, and December 19th. That's when transiting Mars is going to set off the Saturn-Pluto conjunction that occurred on January 12th in your sign at 22 degrees cardinal. But even before that, Mars is going to, people are already going to be much more charged. They thought they were earlier, this season with the Mars energy in the first eclipse. The first lunar eclipse in Sag made an exact square to Mars in Pisces, which is a fairly passive placement. It is a passive placement. So Mars in Aries is not passive. So it helps us to get things done. Figure out, for you, do things around the house. If you work from home, it's excellent for getting things accomplished, but there could be some strife at home, or dealing with family members that are going through something, or again, maybe you're dealing with a real estate issue or what have you. But that's the focus. So if there are things you want to do and get things done, if you want to launch something new altogether, use July and August. Mercury is retrograde in Cancer until July 12th, and it's retrograding in your house of relationships and partnerships. So this could bring many people from the past in many different ways, especially because Venus was recently retrograde as well. And Venus retrogrades once every 18 months, and it retrogrades in the sign of Gemini once every 8 years. So it retrograded in your house of work and daily routine. And so it could be people that you used to work with that have resurfaced. Maybe you're re-examining how you conduct your lifestyle. If you're living a healthy lifestyle, Venus will be transiting in that house until August 8th. But the North Node of Fate is transiting in your house of work and health and habits until January of 2022. So it's really about also focusing on how you can be of service, because that's the Virgo house in astrology, and it's helping others. So that's another thing to bear in mind. We have a second new moon in Cancer that also falls in your house of relationships. So there could be a lot of good new opportunities for partnering on many different ways. And that occurs on July 20th at 28 degrees of Cancer. And that's a good new moon to set intentions. And another aspect that's very helpful is transiting Jupiter in your sign is going to form what's known as a sextile, an aspect of opportunity to Neptune in Pisces. And Neptune is the imagination. It's our creativity. And it's a very spiritual aspect, and it's a very manifesting aspect. And it's good for financial partnering too. And that occurs, so Jupiter in your first house with Neptune in your third house of communication and ideas. So it's excellent for marketing and for doing all forms of writing and promoting yourself. So it's going to be an intense summer with Mars and Aries. It's going to be incredible for us in terms of accomplishing what we want to do. And for you, a lot of focus around home in many different respects, and also certainly a lot of restructuring and reassessment, because you'll never see this much Capricorn in your lifetime. And this is the final eclipse in your sign, so you're done with that. And Saturn re-enters Aquarius on December 17th, and then Jupiter enters Aquarius on December 20th. And the two meet up on the winter solstice on December 21st at 0 degrees of Aquarius in your house of income and what you value. And that marks what's known as a great cycle that occurs every 20 years. And that's where we're really headed towards the Aquarian age, and our resources, our intellect, our ability to connect, communicate, thinking globally, thinking collectively, thinking about thinking in really infinite ways, and about futuristic thinking. And so the planet of chaos and brilliance rules Aquarius, Uranus. So here we go. All right, full steam ahead. Thanks a lot. Take care. Yikes.